Hi guys, this is the story of Amope, the quiet tailor of Abeokuta, whose stitches were as neat as her soul was peaceful. And of Lekan, the loud businessman who mistook her gentle silence for an empty calabash, forgetting that the deepest rivers flow without a sound. He prayed for a peaceful wife, but when the ancestors answered, he could not recognize his blessing. For as the elders say, the man who is given a ripe, sweet mango and still complains that it is not a spicy pepper, will soon have neither. Welcome to Echoes from the Baobab Tree. Kindly like, share and subscribe to the channel if you haven't do so. You are blessed. Let's continue the story. Many years ago, before everything scattered like dry pepper in the wind, Amope was known in the rocky city of Abeokuta as the quiet tailor with the softest eyes and the neatest stitches. She had a way of greeting people, a gentle, equal arrow, that made them smile even if they were angry. And when customers came to her small wooden shop near the Kutu market and complained that their clothes were too tight or too loose, she would smile and say, "Mo ibiayo. Emo mosai itni." Her mother, Mama Bisola, always told her, "My daughter, your calmness is your crown. Don't lose it because of anybody's noise." And truly, Amope carried that crown like a queen, making people feel safe around her. And then one hot afternoon when the sun refused to mind its business, a man named Lekan stopped by her shop. He came to fix a torn pocket on his kettle. But what tore next was his heart. He stood by the doorway staring as if he just saw a miracle. And when Amope said, "Cousin, sir," his voice stammered, "Good afternoon, beautiful piece." From that day, he started calling her Lyreal, his Peacewoman, and he came back the next day and the next, pretending to bring clothes that didn't need any fixing. Lekan was anything Amope was not. He was loud, confident, always laughing too much and always shaking people's hands like a local chief. He was a small businessman who sold motor parts at Itoku but behaved as if he owned the garage itself. He loved talking even when nobody was listening. But somehow he found Amope's silence interesting. He used to sit in her shop and tell stories about his childhood in IJ, his dreams, his money problems and even his ex who used to shout like a police siren. Amope would just nod, smile and say, "Oh Dora." Which made him laugh and say, "Hey, you are very different. You are peace in human form." Soon people in the street began to gossip that the noisy man and the quiet tailor were becoming something. The neighbors teased her, saying, "Amope, that man that talks like a talking drum, he's always around you. Hope you are not planning to marry noise." But Amope would just laugh shyly and continue sewing. Even her mother noticed how she now hummed love songs by King Sunny all the while sewing and how she smiled at her phone as if she just won a lottery. Mama Bisola only said, "If he loves you for your peace, my daughter, may he also protect that peace." When Lekan finally proposed, it was not in a restaurant or under any fancy light. He just came one Saturday morning with a small ring, knelt beside her sewing machine and said, "Marry me, Lyreal, because I have had too much war in my life." Everyone clapped. The market women shouted, "With grave." And Amope's heart danced like it had never danced before. The wedding was a simple but loud event at a hall in Ek. The choir sang as if they were competing for a Grammy. Lekan danced like his shoes were on fire and Amope smiled quietly through everything. Even during the reception, he told the crowd, "My wife doesn't talk too much, but her silence speaks louder than noise." Everyone laughed and Amope blushed, not knowing that the same sentence would one day sound like an insult. Their marriage started peacefully. She cooked, cleaned, prayed, and smiled while he worked, talked, laughed, and brought home gifts. He would come home tired, drop his phone, and say, "My Lyreal, your face alone is my therapy." Then they would eat ofada rice and grilled fish on the balcony, and talk about how they would build a big house one day at Olimorok's foot. But as months rolled by, something strange began to happen. Lekan started acting as if her silence was a problem. When she didn't argue during small misunderstandings, he complained. "Amope, are you even human? Say something now." When she quietly served him food, he said, "You are too calm. Can't you spice life small? One day when she laughed too gently, he even told her in disgust, "You laugh as if you are afraid of yourself." It was confusing because she was doing the same things he used to love. If she got angry, he would call her dramatic. If she stayed calm, he called her boring. She didn't even know which version of herself to present anymore. She even tried cracking a joke once, but it was so bad that he stared at her and said, "Please leave comedy for others." When Mama Bisola visited, she noticed the tension. She told her daughter, "My child, peace is good, oh, but even peace needs laughter to survive." Amope only nodded, pretending everything was fine, but her heart was slowly turning into a tight knot. Then one evening while they were eating, Lekan said something that pierced deeper than a tailor's needle. He said, "You know, sometimes I feel like I'm married to a pillow. Soft, quiet, and always there, but lifeless." Amope looked up in shock. Her spoon froze halfway to her mouth. He laughed, thinking it was funny, but that night she couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan, spinning round and round, and she kept telling herself, maybe peace is not enough for some men. Unfortunately, Lekan continued to change slowly like rain that pretends it will soon stop, but keeps falling until everywhere floods. At first, Amope thought he was just stressed and needed more spice. But soon, what she feared the most started to happen. He would come home late with a feminine smell, laughing on the phone with somebody whose name he refused to mention. When she asked, "To enayen?" he replied, "Just business, I real. Don't start acting like a jealous wife." But the thing about silence is that it can start to feel like punishment when the person you are keeping peace for keeps testing your patience. Lekan, who once said her calmness was healing, started calling it annoying. He would shout, "Amope, ki elofe. You never talk. You just sit there like a wall. Do you even have blood in your body?" Sometimes he would purposely provoke her just to see if she would react. He would scatter the bed, leave his shoes in the kitchen, and throw his clothes on the floor. When she quietly picked them up, he would shake his head and say, "You see, no single spark, a normal woman would have shouted by now." Even the neighbors started noticing the change. One of them, Aya Ebeji, called her aside one morning and said, "My daughter, see, when men say they want peace, sometimes they mean they want control. Don't let him turn you into furniture in your own house." Amope smiled sadly and said, "He just needs time." But unfortunately, time only made things worse. One day, his younger sister Teo came to visit for a few days. That lady was a walking pepper soup. She was hot, noisy, and always boiling. She carried gossip like handbags and criticized everything, the curtains, the food, even the way Amope breathed. She told Amope, "Sister-in-law, you are too gentle. How would this house ever be lively? Even the radio is quiet because of you." Amope tried to ignore her. She cooked, cleaned, and smiled as usual. But Teo wasn't satisfied. She started whispering into her brother's ear at night, not minding that Amope could hear her, saying, "Brother, this your wife is like a ghost. Are you sure you didn't marry her out of pity?" Unfortunately, Lekan started believing her. He began spending more time outside, claiming meetings, business trips, and even fake boys' nights out. He would come home past midnight reeking of feminine perfume. And when Amope asked if he would eat, he would scoff, "Don't worry, the woman at the office takes better care of me." That sentence entered her heart like a needle dipped in fire, but she didn't cry. She just said, "Oh Dora," and went to bed. However, her silence that night was not peaceful. It was heavy like thunder hiding behind the clouds. From too much peace that night. Then the dinner disaster happened. It was a Sunday evening and Amope cooked his favorite meal, Eva Bigiri with chicken stew. She decorated the table, wore her best outfit, and even played soft music to make him happy. Well, when Lekan came in, he didn't greet her. He sat down, looked at the food, and said, "Chicken again?" You don't have creativity, Amope. You are even boring in the kitchen. Amope froze. But before she could say anything, Theo laughed from the couch and added, "It is true, sister-in-law. Even your stew smells quiet and boring." That was the first time that something snapped inside Amope. She looked at both of them sharply like a knife and said, "Theo, if this house is too quiet for you, the road outside still works. And Lekan, if chicken is too peaceful, next time I'll serve you crocodile." The whole room went silent. Lekan blinked in confusion. Theo's jaw dropped and Amope calmly packed her plates, walked to the bedroom, and locked the door. The next morning, she woke up early, got dressed, and went to church alone. The choir sang about God's love, but her heart was boiling with Atarodo. When she returned, Lekan was sitting in the living room, scrolling through his phone. Without even looking up, he said, "You are changing, Amope. I don't like this new tone." Amope smiled bitterly. "Then maybe you should talk to the old Amope. She died." Later that week, Amope found herself walking towards the ancient rocks of Olumo. She needed a place to breathe, to think away from the oppressive walls of her home. She climbed the worn steps, her hands brushing against the cool, solid stone that had witnessed centuries of history and survival. At a quiet ledge overlooking the sprawling city of Abeokuta, she sat down, the very city that had withstood sieges and thrived. Tears she had long held back finally fell, not with sobs, but in a quiet, steady stream. She watched the Ogun River snake through the landscape, constant and unwavering. In that moment, her mother's words, "Your calmness is your crown," echoed in her mind, but they felt different now. A crown wasn't meant to be a burden, it was a symbol of sovereignty. Her peace wasn't a weakness to be exploited, but a strength to be wielded. The rocks around her didn't scream to prove their strength, they simply were, immovable and resilient. She could be like that. Her silence could be her rock, not her prison. Wiping her tears, she felt a new resolve solidify within her, as hard and clear as the granite beneath her. She would no longer offer her peace to someone who treated it as an insult. She would reclaim it for herself. She overheard him on the phone again. His voice was low and soft. "You are different, Ngozi. You are exciting. You are not like my wife who just stares at walls." Amope stood there in the dark hallway, clutching her chest which felt tight. She whispered to herself, "So this is the reward for peace." From then on, Lekan got worse. He became totally distant. He laughed on the phone, left lipstick stains on his shirt unapologetically, and accused her of being insecure. Once she tried to hug him from behind, but he shrugged her off and said, "Don't start acting needy." Mama Bisola came visiting again and immediately noticed the cold air. "Ki elo ni inu alye, omomi." Amope smiled and lied. "It's just the weather. Nothing is wrong." However, the truth was that her heart was already packing its bags. She wasn't sure when, but she knew something inside her heart had broken, and it was not going to stay broken forever. That night, as she lay awake, listening to the sound of Lekan's snores, she said a short prayer, "Oliwa, fon mi Eloi tobi fon mi Eli." And that was the night peace started preparing to fight back. I think when people say the quiet ones are the most dangerous, they had probably met someone like Amope and run away to live to tell the story properly, because the Amope that woke up after that night was not the same one that used to whisper "Odora" when her husband insulted her. She was still calm, but it was the kind of calmness that comes before a hurricane. For weeks, her silence became her greatest disguise. Lekan thought she was still weak. But she was just planning her comeback quietly like a lion waiting for the right time to roar. She started leaving the house early, telling him she had new sewing contracts and returning home late with small shopping bags and a mysterious smile. One day he asked her, "Where have you been going to every day?" And she said, "I am going to where peace is appreciated." He didn't understand, but soon he would. One morning, she went to visit her best friend, Ronk, a woman who had the mouth of 10 radios and the confidence of a lawyer who never loses cases. When Ronk opened the door and saw Amope standing there with swollen eyes and trembling lips, she shouted, "Oh, I knew it. You've been swallowing tears again. Come inside before I march to that man's shop myself." Amope sat down and finally talked. She poured out everything. The insults, the late nights, the mysterious Ngozi, and the way Teo treated her like a house girl. Ronk's mouth hung open. "You mean you've been living like this and you didn't even slap small sense into that man? My sister, you are too calm. Even Jesus flogged people in the temple. Who are you not to shout?" They both burst into laughter. But that laughter was medicine. For the first time in a long time, Amope felt her chest open up. Ronk encouraged her to join a women's tailoring collective in Lagos. It was a small group of fashion designers who met weekly to share ideas, take pictures, and showcase their designs. Amope hesitated at first, saying, "I don't know anyone there." Ronk replied, "Good. You'll meet the woman you used to be." That week, Amope packed her sewing machine and moved temporarily to Lagos for business expansion. Lekan didn't even ask too many questions. He was too busy enjoying his so-called freedom. He told Teo, "Let her go. Maybe she will learn how to be interesting in the city." But Lagos taught her more than how to be interesting. It taught her how to glow. Amope started designing bold and colorful Adaya and Iro and Buba. Not the shy types that were afraid, but the loud ones that announced confidence. She began smiling differently and walking with her back straight. The other designers admired her work, and one of them helped her open an Instagram page for her fashion line. She named it Real Styles by Amope. Within weeks, her designs started trending. People loved her story and her calm but classy aura. She even got invited to a small fashion event where she modeled her own outfits. Meanwhile, back in Abeokuta, Lekan was still busy misbehaving. He was seeing Ngozi, the same woman who once sold phones in the market but now called herself a business consultant. Ngozi was full of drama and excitement, exactly what he thought he wanted. She laughed loudly, wore long wigs, and posted motivational quotes like, "If he can't handle your fire, let him burn elsewhere." Well, he didn't know that elsewhere was about to be him. Back in Lagos, Amope started getting attention from unexpected places. One of her clients, who was a journalist, invited her for a TV interview about peaceful women who rebirth after heartbreak. The interview went viral. Everyone praised her voice, her confidence, and her grace. The video caption read, "Silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is preparation." When Ronk sent Lekan the clip, he nearly dropped his phone. He was sitting in his car with Ngozi when he saw his wife's face on media. She looked radiant, dressed in a bright orange Iro and Buba with soft makeup and a calm smile. The presenter asked, "So, Mrs. Amope, what inspired your transformation?" And she replied, "Pain has a way of turning peace into power." Ngozi hissed, "This your wife likes forming scent." But Lekan didn't hear her. He was too busy staring at the screen like someone who just remembered he left a diamond in the trash. The next day, gossip started flying in Abeokuta. Teo's friends began tagging her in the video, saying, "Your sister-in-law is trendy. Oh, she's glowing. See how beautiful she looks." Teo felt heat rise to her face and she mumbled, "She's just lucky. TV will soon forget her," but deep down she was jealous. 2 days later, another shock came. Someone sent Lekan a video clip. It was of Ngozi at a hotel in Lagos dancing closely with another man. The caption read, "Soft life baby with her real king." And there on her wrist was the same gold bracelet he bought for her last week. He threw his phone on the couch and screamed. "So I left my peaceful wife for this circus." That evening he called Amope for the first time in months. She picked up and her voice was as calm as ever. "Hello, Lekan." He stammered. Amope, I just saw your interview. You look different. Amope smiled. That's because I remembered who I was before peace became punishment. Lekan sighed. Can we talk, please? I think I made mistakes. Amope laughed. You didn't make mistakes, Lekan. You made choices and now the results are teaching you free lessons. Before he could reply, she added, don't worry. I am not angry. You gave me war and I decided to build an empire out of the ashes. With that, she ended the call. That night, she and Ronk drank zobo on her balcony, watching the Lagos skyline. Ronk asked, so, what's next, Ariel? Amope smiled. Next, I'll just keep sewing peace into dresses and letting them wear my story. See, if life were a market, Karma would be that market woman who never forgets to collect her balance. Because after months of pretending he didn't care, Lekan's arrogance began to crack piece by piece like an overused plastic bowl. As if Ngozi's betrayal was not enough, everything around him started going wrong at once. His business, which once moved like a fast train, suddenly began to slow down. Clients stopped calling. One man accused him of taking money for spare parts that never arrived. Another customer returned the shipment, claiming it was fake. Even his trusted assistant quit without notice, saying he found a better opportunity. Well, the truth was nobody wanted to work for a man whose name was now mixed with scandal and gossip. Because somewhere between Lagos and Abeokuta, the street had started talking. They said, that is the man who cheated on his quiet wife, the one on TV. His reputation began to smell like rotten fish. Even people who once admired him started crossing the road when they saw him. And as if embarrassment was not enough, Ngozi the firecracker who once called him my lion suddenly became his biggest headache. She would call him 10 times a day demanding things, wigs, phones, trips, and if he didn't answer, she would go on to post cryptic messages online. Some men are only lions in their dreams. When peace leaves your house, war will move in and refuse to pay rent. Well, everyone knew who she was talking about. One day, Lekan finally snapped. Ngozi, I am tired. I know I wanted a woman with fire, but this fire is burning me too much. Ngozi laughed, flipping her wig. Then go back to your cold wife. Maybe she will sew you a fire extinguisher. That night, he drove home in anger, shouting at himself in the car. He didn't even notice that his petrol was almost finished until the car coughed and stopped by the roadside. As he stood there sweating, mosquitoes held a conference on his legs. He muttered, God, what did I do to deserve this? Meanwhile, in Lagos, Amope was living her best life. Her brand, Ariel Styles, had grown into something bigger than she imagined. Her dresses were now being worn by local celebrities and she had just gotten an invitation to showcase her designs at an upcoming fashion fair. Her picture was everywhere on billboards, magazines, and online adverts. Of course, Ronk was her biggest cheerleader. One afternoon as they arranged clothes in the shop, Ronk said, my sister, see what peace can do when you stop wasting it on people who don't deserve it. Amope laughed. It's funny, Ronk. I didn't even try to prove anything to him. I just started living. And then one day, the village people decided to embarrass him publicly. A TV station invited Amope again for a live discussion on self-worth and women's peace. She accepted and didn't even know that Lekan would be watching from a crowded beer parlor in Abeokuta. As soon as her face appeared on the screen, the men around him started murmuring. Isn't that your wife, bro? One of them said. Another man laughed. She don't blow. My wife follows her page online. Lekan forced a smile, pretending he wasn't dying inside. On screen, Amope sat elegantly like royalty. The host asked, Mrs. Amope, what advice do you have for women going through silent battles? Amope smiled and said, peace is not about keeping quiet while dying inside. Peace is about knowing when to walk away before silence becomes your prison. The beer parlor went quiet. Even the men drinking beer nodded slowly. One of them whispered, "Wisdom they talk." Lekan stood up, dropped money on the counter, and left before they started laughing at him. At home, he paced around in confusion. Everything reminded him of Amope, the smell of her old fabric softener, the low sound of her laughter that still echoed in his head, the way she used to hum gospel songs when washing plates. He missed all of it, but pride was still sitting on his chest like a stubborn goat. Tayo, on the other hand, was having her own share of karma. Her boyfriend found out that she was the one who caused her sister-in-law's marital issues and ended their relationship with a single text, "I don't date troublemakers." People in her church also stopped greeting her. And her name became a proverb, "Don't be like Tayo, the sister-in-law who mocked peace." One evening, she called her brother crying. "Lekan, people are laughing at me. Everyone says I destroyed your marriage." Lekan snapped. "Did I not warn you to stop talking? Then see now, you and your loud mouth help chase away the only woman who ever brought sense into this family." Tayo sniffed. "So it's my fault?" Lekan coughed. "If your mouth were a car, it would need new brakes." A week later, Lekan received a court summons. Amope had officially filed for legal separation. She didn't come in person. Her lawyer did. The letter was short but painful. "Mr. Lekan, this is to inform you that Mrs. Amope seeks separation based on emotional neglect and infidelity. Kindly prepare for property mediation." Lekan stared at the paper as if it was written in Greek. His hands trembled. He picked up his phone and called her. She answered after the third ring. "Amope, please, let's talk." "Don't do this." Amope replied calmly. "Lekan, I already talked. You just never listened." Lekan begged. "I can change. I'll do anything. I miss you." But Amope's tone remained firm. "You miss peace, not me. And peace doesn't return to a house that burnt it." When she ended the call, Lekan broke down completely. For the first time in his adult life, he cried like a child because he finally realized what he threw away. Well, that was not the end for him because life has a funny way of balancing things properly. One moment, you are the man everyone greets, Boss Lekan. Icaro. And the next moment you are standing in front of your landlord explaining why the rent is late. That was exactly where Lekan found himself a few months after Amope left. Everything he touched seemed to crumble like old bread. His business collapsed completely. His landlord threw his things outside one morning saying, "Boss, I respected you before, but please respect cannot pay rent." His car broke down on the same day and the mechanic said the repairs would cost half of what he no longer had. He called Ngozi out of desperation, but her number had been switched off permanently, probably by another man who could afford to pay her bills. Tayo, his sister, who once laughed at Amope's calmness, was nowhere to be found. She had packed her things and gone back to IJ, leaving him to face his life alone. And that was when Lekan finally began to understand what people meant when they said, "Peace doesn't make noise, but its absence screams." He missed Amope's too. And without her, the house felt like a ghost town now. Everything echoed. Even his own thoughts. He could barely sleep. The same silence he once mocked now mocked him back louder than thunder. One evening, as he sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through his phone trying to find something to distract him, he saw a video on Facebook. It was Amope's latest interview from a local fashion blogger who had visited her new studio. The video opened with her smiling while ironing a dress, looking peaceful, calm, and radiant in a way that made him want to cry. The blogger asked, "So, how did you start all this?" Amope smiled softly and said, "It started with pain, but you know, pain can teach you who you really are. I stopped trying to please people who didn't value my quietness. Now, I am using that same energy to rebuild my life." The comment section was filled with praises. "This woman's grace is something else. May we never lose our peace to the wrong people. She's a true and golden queen. Lekan didn't notice when his eyes began to blur. And he shamefully admitted that he didn't deserve her kind of woman. He hesitated for days. But then one Saturday morning, he finally took a bus to Lagos. He didn't have a car anymore. And even his best shirt had started fading. But he didn't care. He carried a small bag of apology gifts, a box of her favorite Garudi biscuits and an Adaya fabric he bought from the market. When he arrived at her studio, his legs felt weak. The place was bright and organized with assistants moving around. Amope was there, sitting behind her desk. When she saw him, she didn't flinch. She just blinked slowly then smiled. "A cousin, Lekan." He swallowed hard. "Amope, you look different. You look happy." Amope nodded. "That is what peace looks like when it is not competing with chaos." Lekan shifted awkwardly, holding the biscuit box like a child caught stealing. "I came to say sorry," he murmured. "For everything. I was stupid. I didn't realize you were the one holding my life together." Amope sighed. "Lekan. I forgive you. I forgave you long before now." Lekan looked down ashamed. "I don't know if..." Amope interrupted him. "You thought peace would always wait for you. But see, even peace gets tired of waiting." There was a long silence between them. Then he looked around the studio and said, "You built all this without me." Amope smiled. "No, Lekan. I built it after you. Pain became my raw material." Lekan wanted to ask for another chance, but deep down he knew it was too late. She wasn't his anymore. Before leaving, he handed her the biscuit box and the fabric. "I know it's not much." She accepted them. "It's okay. You've already given me the biggest gift." Lekan frowned. "What is that?" Amope looked him straight in the eyes and said, "Ominera." "Freedom." Lekan nodded slowly and left without another word. That evening, he walked along the Lagos streets watching couples laughing and holding hands. For the first time, he realized how badly he had treated what other men would have prayed for. Meanwhile, back in her studio, Amope packed up her things, ready to close for the day. Ronk entered in a rush as if she had been running. "Guess who I saw outside looking like a lost goat," she said, grinning. Amope smiled without looking up. "Let me guess. Lekan." Ronk's eyes widened. "You saw him?" "Yes," Amope said. "He came here to apologize." "And?" Amalia folded a piece of cloth and said, "I wished him peace too." Ronk laughed. "So that is it?" "That is it," Amope replied. "Some wars don't need revenge. Just retreat." That night, as she lay in bed, the wind outside blew gently through her curtains. She thought about everything she had survived and smiled to herself. She wasn't angry anymore. She was just thankful that she had found herself before she was completely lost. And somewhere in his small room in Abeokuta, Lekan sat on a small bed, staring at an old wedding photo. He picked up his phone, opened Amope's business page, and typed a message, "I'm proud of you, Amope. May your peace never run out." Amope saw the message hours later and typed back one short reply. "Amin." And that was how it ended, with a peaceful understanding between them. Kindly blow us the like and subscribe if you haven't. Thanks for watching. If you like the story, kindly give it a like and subscribe to the channel. See you later.